All right, so we're diving deep today, folks, into some unconventional wisdom, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely
We're
unconventional.
going to be dissecting a motivational speech and
Speech.
a speech, but
Not like a typical,
it's not like your typical self-help, rah-rah kind of thing.
right.
It's
It's raw, this one.
yeah, it is raw. It's a live recording.
You can feel it, the energy.
You can feel the energy, yeah, and the speaker's personal story.
Captivating.
It really is captivating.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from an immigrant background driven to really escape poverty,
Yeah.
his perspective on building wealth it's different.
It's not about a good income, is it?
It's not just about a good income.
No.
He's laser focused on accumulating capital.
That's the distinction, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
He's got this powerful analogy about the tax system.
Oh, yeah.
And at least in his experience, how it makes it so hard to build real wealth.
Right.
Got me
Yeah.
thinking,
It's not enough to just earn money.
you got to build something that lasts,
Yes.
grows over time.
It's about creating a solid foundation.
Not just,
Not a fleeting,
fleeting
income stream. I mean, I was highlighting that part like crazy in my notes.
Me too, yeah.
And he actually shares this anecdote about analyzing the tax system when he was younger.
Oh, really?
And it ignited this drive in him
To find a different path.
to find a different path, yeah.
And there's a takeaway for you listening. Think about your own approach to building capital. Are you just focused on that income, or are you actively looking for ways to invest, grow your assets, real estate maybe, starting a business, even investing in your skills?
Right. Those are all great, yeah.
Investing in knowledge.
Yeah. And speaking of skills, one of the things that just jumped out at me was the speaker's emphasis on becoming exceptional.
Oh, yeah.
He uses this brilliant analogy. It's about Peyton Manning,
Oh, I loved that part.
the quarterback. Yeah. He's saying, Peyton Manning gets paid millions, but not because he's a jack of all trades on the field, right?
No.
It's because he's mastered one specific skill,
Throwing that football.
throwing that football.
Yeah.
So it's about specializing.
In today's world, right?
In today's world, I mean, it's so competitive.
You got to be more than good at a lot of things. You got
Yeah.
to find that one thing and then
You're great at
hone it to a world-class level.
Absolutely. And he's saying this applies to any field,
Oh, yeah.
not just business or sports.
Any field at all.
If you're a doctor, a teacher, an artist, whatever,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. The principle holds true. So he encourages everyone, identify those strengths,
Yeah.
where you naturally excel,
Yeah.
and then focus on developing those to a point of mastery.
Become the go-to expert.
Yes.
The Peyton Manning of your field.
It makes a lot of sense. It's about, I guess, leveraging your unique talents
Stand out from the crowd.
to stand out from the crowd. Exactly.
Yeah.
This has me thinking, what are my superpowers?
Yeah.
What
are you passionate about?
Yeah. What am I truly passionate about?
Yeah.
And how can I develop those, to that point where I become the expert,
The undisputed expert.
the undisputed expert?
It's a good question. Now, the journey to becoming exceptional,
Yeah.
it's rarely smooth sailing. You're going to
No.
hit setbacks, face challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where his perspective on failure becomes really interesting.
A little counterintuitive, I thought.
Yeah. Very counterintuitive. He doesn't advocate for avoiding failure.
No.
He's saying absorb it,
Lean into it.
lean into it,
Yeah.
use it as fuel.
It's a mindset shift.
It is, yeah.
He emphasizes developing resilience,
Having a growth mind.
viewing setbacks not as defeats, but
opportunities to learn.
to learn and improve.
Yeah.
And he actually shares, I love that he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, I know, it's refreshing.
He shares a personal anecdote.
Does he?
Yeah. About pushing through a period where he felt like a complete failure.
Wow.
And
Highlights the importance of perseverance.
it does. It really does.
And he doesn't just talk about it abstractly, does he? He gives you a framework,
Yeah.
for dealing with it.
Yeah.
Separating your self-worth
Oh, yeah.
from the outcome.
Right.
Just because something didn't work out doesn't mean you're a failure.
Right. It's about detaching your ego from the results.
Yeah, and focusing on what you learned. What are some other practical strategies he suggests for reframing that failure? Analyze what happened, right? What could have been different. It's not about dwelling on it, though, is it?
No.
It's about extracting those insights, and then you adjust your approach and you try again.
So we've talked about accumulating capital, becoming exceptional, embracing failure. But there's another aspect of success that he addresses with surprising candor.
Okay.
Loneliness.
Yeah.
He talks about how as you climb the ladder,
Yeah.
maintaining relationships and dealing with like the envy, the competition,
Yeah.
it can get so difficult.
It can be so hard.
He even says something like the more successful you are as an entrepreneur, the lonelier it gets.
That's something that's rarely discussed,
I know.
But it is real.
It is real.
It's a real challenge.
He acknowledges that success changes the dynamics
Oh, it does, yeah.
of relationships.
Yeah.
And sometimes it leads to those feelings of isolation.
As people, their perceptions of you change.
They do, yeah. He even said, the bigger you are, the bigger the target on your back. Why do you think that is?
I think partly it's because success can create that distance between you and those who haven't achieved that same level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can, I think it can trigger feelings of envy, resentment in others.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes those connections harder.
So how can you, anticipate and navigate these potential pitfalls?
As you're going after your goals.
Yeah.
He doesn't offer a simple solution,
Right.
but he emphasizes being mindful of those changes in your relationships and being proactive, about nurturing the connections that matter.
The ones that really matter.
Yeah, yeah. Making time for loved ones, communicating honestly and openly, setting boundaries where you need to.
That makes sense. Maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
Between your personal and professional life, even as, your world is changing.
As your world expands, yeah.
And speaking of finding people to share the journey with, he is a huge advocate for mentorship.
Oh, mentorship, yeah.
Huge advocate. He credits a lot of his success to learning from those who've already achieved what he aspired to.
Right.
People he mentions Warren Avis.
Wow.
Even some of the sharks, from that, that business show.
Yeah, yeah.
So mentorship, he says it's incredibly valuable.
It is. Having someone to guide you, share their experiences, offer advice based on their own journey.
It could accelerate your growth.
And help you avoid those pitfalls, right?
Yes. He's basically saying, why reinvent the wheel?
When you can learn from someone who's already been there, done that.
Exactly. So how can you actively seek out and cultivate these mentor relationships?
Well, first, identify those people you admire, right?
Okay.
The individuals who have achieved what you want.
Okay.
And then don't be afraid to reach out.
Just go for it.
Email, social media, go to events where they're speaking, whatever.
I love that.
Just reach out. And when you do, remember to be respectful of their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come prepared, have specific questions, and be open to their feedback.
So we've talked about mentorship, and there's this really powerful anecdote about the speaker's own father that I wanted to touch on. He talks about his dad's incredible courage as an immigrant.
Leaving everything behind.
Leaving everything behind to start a new life in a foreign country.
It's a big leap.
It is a huge leap of faith. What struck me was how he connected his father's experience to his own drive for success. He talked about his dad's resilience, that unwavering determination to create a better life.
For his family.
For his family, yeah. And it instilled in him this deep-seated belief in the power of opportunity.
I mean, that's a beautiful connection.
It is, yeah.
Right.
Our values and motivations, they're often shaped by those who came before us.
They really are. And it leads to another key point he makes, I think. The importance of having that strong internal compass, a belief in yourself, and the determination to pursue your goals.
Even when faced with adversity.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just talk about this philosophically. He directly ties it back to business decisions.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's adamant about not letting emotions cloud your judgment.
Especially with tough calls.
Especially with tough calls.
Yeah.
He even tells a story about almost backing out of selling his first company.
Oh, wow.
Because he was so emotionally attached to it.
Oh, I can relate to that.
He called it his baby.
Oh.
And his CEO at the time had to, give him a reality check.
What did he say?
He said, nope, it's a business. Your baby's at home.
Wow. That's a good CEO.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how, our feelings, they can cloud our judgment.
They can, absolutely.
Especially when we're so invested.
Yeah.
So what are some techniques you can use to make, more rational decisions?
Even when your emotions are running high.
Yeah.
Well, he suggests a few things. First, define your objectives, your criteria for success, but beforehand.
Oh.
So when you're faced with that decision,
Yeah.
evaluate your options against those criteria. Already set, right?
I like that.
Yeah. Second, get some external perspectives.
Right.
Trusted advisors, mentors, someone who can be a little more objective.
Right.
And finally, remember that sometimes those tough calls, they require separating your emotions from the equation.
Stepping back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about being able to make those tough calls.
Clear head.
Clear head, yeah. And this ties back to his message about, resilience,
Mental fortitude.
building a successful business, or anything really, any significant goal.
Yeah.
It requires you to make those hard decisions.
You got to weather the storms.
You got to weather the storms. And he goes on to say, to be truly successful, you can't just be, okay at something. He uses this analogy like a mediocre athlete who shows up to practice, half-hearted effort,
Right.
and then wonders why they're not getting picked.
Right. They're not in the big leagues.
It's about pushing yourself to be the best, world class.
He actually talks about waking up in a cold sweat,
Really?
terrified of being labeled a failure. That's the level of drive.
Oh, that's intense.
It's inspiring, but also,
A little intimidating.
it is a little intimidating.
Makes you think, how much am I willing to push myself?
Yeah.
What am I truly passionate about? What am I willing to become world class at?
Those are powerful questions.
They are. And I think that's a perfect place to pause.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part,
Oh, yeah.
but there's still a lot more to unpack.
There is.
So, back to our deep dive. Before the break, you were asking those questions about pushing yourself, those passions, and it ties in really well to what he talks about next. It's about that courage to go beyond just, okay.
Right. He's not advocating for mediocrity. He's saying, be exceptional. Find that fire and use it to fuel your ambitions.
It's fascinating how he connected this to his father's story.
Mm-hmm.
That courage to immigrate, start fresh. It's like he sees that inherited resilience, like it's the foundation of his own success.
It is a powerful reminder, right? Our values, our motivations, they're often shaped by those who came before us. But he doesn't stop there. He applies that same mentality to business.
To business decisions.
Yeah, that detachment, that objectivity.
Remember that story? Almost backing out of selling his first company?
Oh, yeah, so attached to it.
Called it his baby, even. But his CEO had to step in. Much needed reality check.
That story, it really stuck with me.
It's a perfect example, isn't it? Emotions clouding your judgment.
Especially when you're so invested. So how do you do that? How do you detach, make those tough calls, clear head,
He doesn't offer any magic formula, but he talks about understanding the game,
the industry,
the market.
the competition, be aware of the playing field, understand those rules of engagement, and then you got to put in the work, develop the skills, the knowledge to compete at a high level.
This goes back to that becoming world class, right? Mastering your craft.
He's not talking about shortcuts, is he?
Yeah.
It's genuine expertise, dedication, discipline, a relentless pursuit of excellence.
Reminds me of what he said about finding that one thing that you're good at and honing it.
Like he said, become the Peyton Manning of your field.
Yes. Find your superpower. Be the undisputed expert. And he doesn't just throw these ideas out, he gives you practical tips.
Like, for instance, mentorship. Seeking out those who've already done it, learn from their experience. Even, he mentioned learning from the sharks.
He's always seeking knowledge, always
Oh.
learning, growing, but he doesn't just passively absorb it, does he?
No, he engages with them.
Asks questions, gets their feedback, he applies it to his own situation. He's not looking for a pat on the back, he wants actionable advice.
It's a good reminder. Mentorship, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. But while mentors can guide you, he also emphasizes personal responsibility. You have to put in the work, embrace the challenges, own your success.
It's having that internal drive, that fire that keeps you going, even when things are tough. Speaking of tough, his perspective on failure. You mentioned he absorbs it rather than avoids it.
What did he say about that?
He said, and this stuck with me, it's not your ability to handle success, it's your ability to absorb failure that decides how successful you'll be.
That's deep. It's not just about the wins. It's about learning from the losses.
He even talked about using that fear of failure as fuel
To push himself further.
to constantly improve.
Interesting approach, turning fear into motivation. But he also said, it doesn't mean being reckless.
Right. Not blind leaps of faith. It's about courage, trying new things, stepping out of that comfort zone.
And learning from those mistakes.
Right. He also had a good tip for those moments of doubt. Remember about the entrepreneurial spirit, even when the sun isn't shining.
What did he say? Remind me.
He said something like, It's easy to be an entrepreneur when things are good. Have that same desire when your biggest customer leaves or you don't have cash for payroll.
He's saying maintain that drive even when it's tough.
When you feel like giving up. If you can stay focused then, you can handle anything.
Mental toughness, resilience, that unwavering belief, even when it's hard.
He's not sugarcoating it, is he? He's real about the challenges.
But incredibly inspiring, too. It's possible to overcome, to achieve, to create the life you want.
That's what makes this speech so good, you know? It's not just motivation, it's a blueprint based on real experience, hard-won lessons.
It's about more than money, meaning purpose.
Fulfillment.
It's about defining your own success and then having the guts to go after it.
He also touches on something that's not talked about much, that loneliness that comes with success.
It's an important point that as you climb, it gets harder to maintain those relationships. And, dealing with attention.
He said, the more successful you are, the lonelier it is. Fewer people you can hang out with, the bigger you are, the bigger the target.
It's a reality, isn't it, for a lot of successful people? Those priorities, perspectives, they shift, and not everyone gets it.
So what can you do to combat that loneliness?
He doesn't give easy answers, but he says build a strong support system. Find people who understand, who get you.
Find your tribe, the ones who are there for the ups and the downs.
And be mindful of the impact your success has on those relationships. Stay grounded. Be humble. Don't let your achievements create that distance.
Stay true to yourself, even as your world changes.
It's interesting, another connection back to his father's story. The courage to immigrate, leave it all behind, face the unknown. It's not so different from going after a dream, embracing the uncertainty.
It's like he inherited that spirit of adventure.
And he's encouraging you to do the same. Step out, embrace the challenge, have the guts to go for it.
Growth, fulfillment, it's on the other side of fear.
And as you're venturing out, making those moves, he's got another key piece of advice. Detach emotion from those business decisions.
That story about selling his company, remember?
He was so attached.
Called it his baby.
It's relatable, but it shows the danger of emotions in business.
Make those choices based on logic, on strategy, on what's best for the business.
It's not being heartless, it's being able to separate the personal from the objective.
His mentor had to give him that tough love.
Reminded him, the business isn't your baby, your family is. Tough lesson, but important.
Shows the importance of having those advisors, those mentors, who can be objective. See the bigger picture. This is really making me think about my own approach to success. It's not just hard work, it's working smart.
Making strategic choices.
Pushing past those fears.
You're getting it, those key takeaways. He's saying, be more than hardworking, be strategic, be resilient, be adaptable, embrace the discomfort, learn from those setbacks, never stop growing.
It's a lot, but it's empowering.
It is. This speech, it's a call to action. Become the best version of you. So what can the listener do to put these insights into action?
Well, it starts with knowing yourself.
Reflect on your strengths, your passions, your definition of success. Find your Peyton Manning skill, the one you can become world-class in.
And don't be afraid to find those mentors, the ones who've been there.
Success isn't a solo sport. Build that support system. Learn from those who came before you. This has been a great conversation. We've only just scratched the surface, haven't we?
There's so much more.
Should we pause here?
Yeah, let's continue our deep dive in part 3. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I gotta say, this speech, it really packed a punch. So many insights, so much to think about.
It did. And what I appreciated was he didn't shy away from the hard parts, right? The loneliness, the sacrifices, the constant push to be better. It made it real.
Oh, absolutely. More relatable for sure. And ultimately, I think more inspiring. He's not selling some perfect dream. He's being honest.
His own story, right? Starting with absolutely nothing, driven to escape that poverty.
Yeah.
And through pure grit, determination, he builds this successful business. It's a classic story, overcoming those odds.
It is. And what makes it so powerful, he doesn't just tell the story, he breaks it down. The principles, the things that actually made it happen, like a blueprint almost.
He's saying, look, I did it, you can too, here's how.
Exactly. So, as we close out our deep dive, let's hit those highlights again. What really stood out to you? What were those aha moments?
Well, for me, it was capital accumulation, not just earning a lot, but building that financial foundation. He even mentioned index funds, as a way to grow that capital steadily.
It's a shift, isn't it? From thinking about income to thinking about building real wealth.
And then, tied to that, specialization. In this world, you got to be more than just good at a bunch of things. Find your Peyton Manning skill.
I love that analogy. Become an expert in your field. But how do you even figure out what that is?
That's where that self-awareness comes in. Spend some time reflecting. Figure out what you're good at, what you actually enjoy, what are you naturally drawn to.
It's about those talents, those passions, and then taking them to that next level.
And remember, it's not always easy, is it? There'll be setbacks, challenges. That's where his view on failure, it's so important.
Embrace it. Use it as fuel instead of avoiding it.
It's about that resilience, that growth mindset. Setbacks aren't defeats, they're lessons. He even talked about, reframing failures. Instead of seeing it as something negative, what if it was data? What can you learn?
It's a whole different way of looking at things. Even when things don't go right, there's something to gain.
And he talked about mentors too, finding those who have been there, who can give advice.
He credits them for a lot of his own success. But it's not just passively listening.
Engage with them, ask questions, get their feedback. He even learned from, some of the biggest investors out there, always learning from those ahead of you.
He also talked about something we don't often hear about, the loneliness of success.
Yeah, as you climb that ladder, it's hard to maintain those relationships, deal with the attention. The bigger you are, the bigger the target, he said.
It's a reality check. Success can come with a price.
But he offered a solution too, didn't he?
He did.
Build a strong support system. Find your people, the ones who get you.
Your tribe, the ones who are there no matter what.
And be mindful of how your success affects those relationships. Stay humble. Don't create that distance.
It's about staying true to yourself even as things change. It struck me, his honesty. He didn't pretend success is easy. He shared it all, the good, the bad, the tough parts. That's what made it so powerful.
I agree. No quick fixes, no overnight success promises. It's a real roadmap. He's challenging you to step up, to embrace the journey, to become the best version of you. And he leaves us with a question we should all ask ourselves. What act of courage do you need to embrace to find success? What are you holding back from out of fear?
It's a call to action, isn't it? To step out of those comfort zones, to face the unknown, go after what you want with that same passion, that same drive. So for everyone listening, I hope this deep dive sparked some ideas, made you think, maybe even lit a fire in you. Success isn't a destination, it's a journey. And it's best traveled with courage, with belief in yourself. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep diving deep.